Nancy Pelosi names another Never-Trump Republican to her Capitol Riot Committee. Those battling against critical race theory are finding increasingly toxic rhetoric from the left, plus race relations hit their lowest point in 20 years. All that and more. I'm Bobby Eberle. This is a 13-minute news hour.
And God bless the United States of America.
All right, friends, welcome to the show. Happy Monday. I hope you had a great weekend. If you're new to the show, thank you so much for tuning in. We're going to start with Nancy Pelosi because she continues to push forward with her Capitol Riot Committee, and she's going out of her way to make this a partisan political circus. As you know, she met with ousted GOP leader Liz Cheney so that Liz Cheney could be on the committee. Well, Liz Cheney doesn't get that pick. Kevin McCarthy on the GOP side picks the Republicans who are on the committee. But Pelosi met with Cheney, gets her on the committee. So then Kevin McCarthy submits a list of 5 House members, House Republicans, to be on the committee. Pelosi rejects Jim Jordan and Jim Banks. So McCarthy says, this is a political sham. This is bogus. I'm withdrawing all these picks. So what does Pelosi do? Now she wants to add another Republican, another Never-Trump Republican, to the committee. She was on ABC's This Weekend, talking with George Stephanopoulos. Here's how he summed things up.
Your decision to reject Congressman Jim Jordan and Jim Banks from the committee has drawn fire from Republicans. The Freedom Caucus is seeking to depose you as Speaker, and Liz Cheney is now the only Republican member of the committee. Are you concerned about the Freedom Caucus threat, and are you confident that the committee's work can be seen as credible if most Republicans won't participate?
Okay, so there's a lot going on there. The Freedom Caucus wants Pelosi gone. Liz Cheney is the only Republican on the committee, and Pelosi's continuing to push forward. Here's her reply.
No, I'm not concerned about any threat from the Freedom Caucus. We get those every day of the week. Our confidence that we have in the work of our bipartisan committee that we have now, Select Committee, led by Chairman Benny Thompson, bipartisan with the participation of a very courageous member of Congress, Congresswoman Liz Cheney, is high. My confidence is high.
Wow. Bipartisan simply because Liz Cheney is on it? Just think about that for a second. Then Pelosi talks about patriotism.
I do believe that the work of this committee, in order to retain the confidence of the American people, must act in a way that has no partisanship, is all about patriotism. And I'm very proud of the members of the committee, and I'm certain that they will accomplish that goal. We have to, again, ignore the antics of those who do not want to find the truth. We will find the truth. That truth will have the confidence of the American people because it will be done patriotically and not in a partisan way.
In that little soundbite, Pelosi just described everything that the committee won't be. It won't be patriotic. It won't be nonpartisan. And to prove it, Stephanopoulos asked Pelosi about another Republican that she plans to name to the committee. Not a pick from Kevin McCarthy, but Nancy Pelosi plans to pick another Never-Trump Republican, someone who voted to impeach former President Trump, Adam Kinzinger.
So when will that be announced?
Perhaps after I speak to Adam Kinzinger. But I'm not about to announce it right this minute. But you could say that that is the direction that I would be going on. He and other Republicans have expressed an interest to serve on the Select Committee, and I wanted to appoint three of the members that Leader McCarthy suggested, but he withdrew their names. The 2 that I would not appoint are people who would jeopardize the integrity of the investigation. And there's no way I would tolerate their antics as we seek the truth.
So there you have it. Jordan and Banks would bring antics and hurt the integrity of the committee, according to Pelosi. But Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger, apparently they're just fine. Those are okay for this committee that won't be patriotic, won't be nonpartisan. It will be a political circus, and it is a monumental waste of taxpayer dollars. All right, Next, let's talk about the radical left. But first, if you're new to the show or haven't subscribed yet, regardless of platform, just search out my name, hit that subscribe button, make sure notifications are turned on. That way you can follow the show and help us grow. Okay, so let's talk about the parents who are fighting back against critical race theory because the heat they are facing from the radical left just keeps getting worse. It keeps getting more intense. Think back to this summer when we had what the media called mostly peaceful protests. What did we actually see? Riots and looting, assaults, vandalism. Property was destroyed. People were hurt, and many times they went unpunished. These people who were perpetrating these crimes. How do you think that affects the attitude of the radical left? If they can just go hurt people or destroy property and there are no consequences. Well, now we're starting to see that in the critical race theory debate. As parents speak out, as people get more and more involved to try and stop this insidious curriculum, the left is fighting back. They've put Facebook groups together to call out parents who have spoken out, trying to dox them, cancel them, shame them. Now we see at a rally that they are taking it even further, shouting out threats to let them die. And here's the story. Republicans at all levels in Virginia are pushing back against left-wing mob mentality, cancel culture, violent rhetoric, and attempts to normalize radical leftist thought after a pro-critical race theory speaker appeared to wish death upon conservative parents in Fairfax County last week. Amid dueling rallies for and against CRT last week, a Fairfax County PTA leader was recorded on video suggesting parents who oppose the race-based philosophy should die, and County Democrat Chair Brian Graham appears to have been part of the crowd that applauded the line. Yes, this is what it's come to. End of debate and discussion and discourse and dialogue. Instead, the left want to shame you. They want to cancel you. They want to dox you. They want to intimidate you. And then they want to just make stuff up. One of the people speaking, the main speaker here, Michelle Leet, she was a leader in the Fairfax County PTA. Here is what she had to say about opponents of critical race theory.
Let's not allow any double downing on lies. Let's prepare our children for a world they deserve. Let's deny this off-key band of people that are anti-education, anti-teacher, anti-equity, anti-history, anti-racial reckoning, anti-opportunities, anti-help people, anti-diversity, anti-platform, anti-science, anti-change agent, anti-social justice, anti-healthcare, anti-worker, anti-LGBTQ+, anti-children, anti-healthcare, anti-worker, anti-environment, anti-emissions policy change.
Did she check all the boxes there? We're talking about critical race theory, and she's talking about anti-emissions policy and anti-healthcare. So she just goes on and on with this laundry list, never actually discussing critical race theory. Then she adds a few more antis to it before she gets to her main line.
Anti-inclusion, anti-live and let live people. Let them die. Don't let these uncomfortable people.
Let them die. And it was at that line that the local Democrat county chairman cheered. He applauded that rhetoric. Now, imagine if this were Republicans saying, let them die. This would be a national story. Republicans would be coming out denouncing it. Democrats, of course, would be coming out denouncing it. Here, there's hardly anything. There's been a slight amount of fallback against Michelle Leet, and here's more reaction. There is no place in our political debate for the kind of rhetoric we just saw in Fairfax, said Nicole Neely, president of Parents Defending Education. And there should be no place for political officials cheering on that rhetoric. Our public schools exist for the benefit of our kids and our communities, and despite the behavior of certain people to the contrary, our schools are not owned by special interests or a tiny political fringe. So as I mentioned, there has been a tiny bit of fallout. Lee has resigned from her position on the PTA, and she told the Washington Post she was actually misquoted. Her comments were taken out of context. She never wished death on anybody. Her let them die remark was to the ideals of the people and not the people themselves. Are you buying that? Let me know in the comments. All right, next let's talk about race relations because programs like CRT are making things worse. In the past, when I grew up, we had MLK's legacy, his ideals of a colorblind society and judging people on merit, not based on race. That's what we grew up with, and guess what? It was working. Now, a new Gallup poll shows that race relations are at their worst point in 20 years. And here's the story. 57% of U.S. adults say relations between black and white Americans are somewhat or very bad, according to a new Gallup poll. 42% of Americans say relations between the two groups are very or somewhat good. Gallup says it marks the second consecutive year adults' positive rating of relations between black and white Americans are at their lowest point in 20 years. By comparison, only 35% said race relations were very or somewhat bad in 2001, and 63% said they were very or somewhat good. What a change. In 2001, 35% of the respondents said race relations were bad. Now it's 57%. Back in 2001, 63% said race relations were good. That number is down to 42%. So you have to ask, what changed? What changed throughout these 2 decades? Well, first of all, we had Barack Obama, who has been the worst president in history for race relations. He went out of his way to make things worse. Remember Michael Brown, the poster boy of the whole BLM movement? He robbed a store, was high on drugs, resisted arrest before attacking a police officer and being shot and killed. Now that police officer, they had an investigation. He was found not guilty of any wrongdoing. And yet that still started the BLM movement. And Obama stoked those flames every chance he got. Now we are seeing everything that Martin Luther King stood for being pushed aside. Not colorblind society. We are actually segregating. MLK fought against segregation. Now they are pushing for safe spaces and graduations based on ethnicity and race. It's absolutely outrageous, but this is what we have in 2021. Here's more from the survey. As the nation continues to grapple with racial equity, Americans rate the state of black-white relations more negatively now than at any time in over 2 decades, Gallup said in its poll report. Overall, however, they believe there is still hope for an eventual solution. Key findings. 33% of black adults say they have a positive view of race relations compared to 70% in 2001. 43% of white adults have a positive opinion of race relations compared to 62% in 2001. 57% of all adults say a solution to the problem of black-white relations will eventually be worked out compared to 48% in 2001. 40% of black adults say a solution to racial discord is possible compared to 60% of whites. It's not a good situation, friends, but we have to keep on this. We have to push for a true united America. And the way we do that is by continuing to talk about the issues, by engaging in debate, engaging in dialogue. If we're shouted down, if we're shunned or doxxed or canceled, we have to keep going. We have to be the ones speaking out and reaching out to people who will actually listen, because we cannot go on like this. We were on the right track. Things were getting better. The radical left wants the division, and that's why you're seeing this. All right, next, let's talk about Dr. Anthony Fauci, because he's back in the news. He seems to bounce around between CNN and MSNBC every time he's just feeling irrelevant, needs some exposure, needs some PR. He gets on there. Well, guess what? He was on CNN again this weekend talking about the potential for new CDC guidelines. And here's the story. White House Chief Medical Advisor Dr. Anthony Fauci said Sunday that the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, is considering recommending masks for vaccinated individuals as the Delta variant continues to surge. Fauci spoke on CNN's State of the Union about COVID-19 and was asked about one projection that suggests cases will continue rising if more Americans don't get vaccinated. Fauci confirmed that it's not going to be good and declared the country is going in the wrong direction. He also warned that the CDC is discussing mask mandates for people who have been fully vaccinated, a subject that the White House has been pressed on in recent weeks. I just find it interesting that whenever the media or Fauci are talking about the Delta variant, they only talk about how contagious it is. and then they just stop. Well, check this out. So here's a chart of the daily COVID cases in the US. Note the big spike in January. Then you have an uptick in April, and now we are seeing a rise with the Delta variant. Again, this is the daily cases. It's what the media love to talk about. Now, here's a chart of daily deaths. Again, a big spike in January, but no spike in April and no spike now. Daily deaths are not following the path of daily cases. So that's just some information for you to think about this Monday as we wrap up the show. But don't forget, if you're new to the show or haven't subscribed yet, regardless of platform, just search out my name, hit that subscribe button, make sure notifications are turned on. That way you can follow the show and help us grow. Friends, thanks so much for tuning in. I really appreciate you being here. Our next show will be Wednesday at the usual time. Until then, I'm Bobby Eberle. This is the 13-Minute News Hour. Okay, friends, thanks so much for watching. And before you go, please hit that subscribe button, hit that bell so you'll be notified. And here's a special video just for you so you can watch even more of the 13-Minute News Hour. And don't forget to check out GOPUSA.com for the best in conservative news and commentary. We'll see you next time.